Right, so for today's planting we're going to be doing two parts once again, and for part one we're going to be doing a little bit of a family sort of reference because one of my cousins in the UK recently had a child on the anniversary of the passing of one of my grandfathers, and the name she gave it actually in the local language here translates to yesterday and tomorrow, which I thought was really quite sweet because even though I don't think she knew that, it's a nice little sort of the past and the future sort of tying in together. So we're going to be planting a tree that is called Yesterday, Today and Tomorrow. This is in the Solanaceae. It's quite a hardy tree provided it's not in too bright light and gets plenty of water. It does have invasion potential in some climates, but here our long dry season really wouldn't favour it if it was to start seeding out in strange places as far as I can tell. So sort of invasive within gardens, not in the wider environment sort of tree. It flowers quite prolifically all year round, so I wanted it somewhere that was nice and conspicuous, and again, because it's usually recommended for shade even in places like the US, which have less intense sunlight generally than we have here, I thought I would give it a little bit more shade than that. So this is going under a pine and a Delanix, so it's in the sort of light shade created by those. And it's going to be quite close to a Dracaena studinary, which is going to come up. This will remain a relatively small tree, so it should be a good sub-canopy to the Dracaena as the Dracaena gets bigger and bigger. We're going to be going with three little companion plants around the base to create a nice sort of little base there. So first off, we're going to be putting in a piece of, I think it's probably Sansevieria kirki, but I'm not sure, which is going to be a nice little succulent spread out. It's very shade tolerant. It should be quite happy here. It has calloused over, but it hasn't yet rooted. It should root in here quite well though. Then we're going to be putting in some pieces of the Peperomia obtusifolia, which is a Central American very sort of widespread ground cover / epiphyte. And then finally we're going to be putting in a piece of Aloe juvena, which is the tiger tooth aloe, which is a nice little sort of crawling East African aloe, which I always think looks like it should be an aloe loba, but anyway, this had broken off one of the larger plants, so I needed someone to plant it. It's reasonably shade tolerant. It will probably end up getting moved away from here once it's sort of rooted and settled in, because it really won't be at its best here. It usually won't flower very well in shade, but it should root perfectly well in here. For part two, we're going to be going with a tree that really isn't going to be the best carbon offsetter. It is, as far as I know, the largest one I have access to of this genus, but it's still not a big one for sucking in the carbon for that flight that I'm just trying to offset for a friend of mine. So we'll probably end up having to do an extra tree on top of this, or an extra large one at some point over these 5 days. But anyway, this is Annona muricata, which is a Soursop, and we're putting this right on the sort of midday shade line of a guava tree, so it shouldn't be getting any sun in the hotter part of the day, but it should be getting some decent sun in the morning, which should be quite an ideal way for it to sort of settle in, do a little bit of growth. It should get at least to the same height as the guava tree, maybe a little bit bigger. But yeah, it's not going to be a huge carbon offsetter. The Dracaena that's going in with it might be a decent one, although again, I've really struggled to find out the sort of statistics on the carbon content of dry mass Dracaena because they are quite different to woody plants. We're also going to be putting in a piece of Aloe cameroni and Kalanchoe prolifera just to increase that sort of succulent barrier around the base. And again, these are very sort of vigorous plants once they get going, so all of this will contribute to sucking carbon out of the sky, just probably not the sort of 30 kilos a year that we're aiming for each of these plantings. And that should be everything for today. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it, and if you haven't enjoyed it, thank you for watching anyway. Please tune in again tomorrow. I will be planting something else. I don't know what yet, but we will find out in due time.